pleasure to introduce the Motivational Cowboy, Johnny D.
It's me, it's Johnny D, the Motivational Cowboy, with this week's Outstanding Life podcast. And who is sitting here with me again?
Joshua Spears.
Man, I tell you, your wife is really going to start wondering. This is like the second podcast that we did this week.
Yeah.
Joshua, not long ago, I asked you, or I called you, and I was so excited about coming up with an idea.
Yep.
And I said, Joshua, I want to interview somebody that has been around a long, long time. You used the word old, and I'm not going to say that this lady that's sitting next to me is old, but you said, Johnny,
it's your story,
stop.
Johnny. Tell it how you want.
You're like, Johnny, stop. I got the lady. Who is sitting here with us right now?
Well, who we have with us today is Kay Cyrek, who is my wife's grandmother, who is 95 years young.
95 years young.
How about that?
Kay, you look amazing. I can't believe you came down to get us. We are literally sitting in your living room. You came down to get us, and I go, oh, she's probably on the first floor. No. You walked down those stairs, came and got us. I mean, you look like $1 million.
Thank you so much.
95 years old.
Yep.
Oh, unbelievable. Joshua, how are we going to start this podcast off? Because I already know by just looking at her that we're going to have a good time this next hour.
Well, the first thing that I wanted to maybe have her share with us is what's your day-to-day like? I know that you're pretty busy. I know that a lot of times people have to make.
Wait, Joshua, what do you mean busy? We had to get an appointment to come here.
Yeah.
She finally said Thursday will work for us as long as it's in the evening.
Yeah, we had to make an appointment. So you're extraordinarily busy. What does your week look like?
Well, I do a lot of things. I play cards. I go to church. I go to play bingo. And I have a lot of friends in the building, plus a lot of friends outside that come over and that. And then we go out to eat.
What kind of cards do you play?
Huh?
What kind of cards do you play?
Bridge, pinochle. I know how to play other cards, but euchre and that, but I don't join. I used to play pinochle at the shrine on Saturday nights, but I don't drive at night anymore, so I quit that club. Although the lady was picking me up, but then she was having a little trouble with orientation. So therefore I decided I was better off staying home instead of playing cards.
Were you ever a poker player?
No, I played poker, but not seriously. No.
Right. You just don't go to the casino and play, that's all.
No. I go to casino and pull the slots, you know.
Right.
But
one question I have too, as far as like being that active at 95, there's a lot of people who are a lot younger that aren't near as active. Are a lot of the friends that you go hang out with and play cards with, are they a lot younger than you?
oh yes, I think the oldest one is 15 years younger than I am, and most of them are 20 and 30 years younger than I am. But the reason that I think this is good, because I read in the paper, and I have the article somewhere, that if you don't have young friends, you won't have anybody at your funeral. So therefore, I have younger friends, so that therefore I will have, besides family, friends.
Her youngest friend is still 80-some years old.
80, yeah, 80 years old.
Right.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So now am I your youngest friend?
Well, it depends on how old you are.
I'm 48.
Well, yeah, I guess you'd be the youngest.
Not family.
You'd be the youngest friend.
That's right. Okay.
But not family.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
My
Well, I just want to know that I'm the youngest now. I'm somewhere in Kay's life here that I'm the youngest,
Right.
not the oldest.
Yeah, I don't have any older, really.
You have no friends that are older than you?
No, none of them. I have one friend at church. Her name is Barbara. And she's my age. She's 3 months younger than I am, though.
Wow.
And she's 95, and she's a wonderful person.
Do you have, how many grandkids do you have?
I have, grandkids, I have 7, and great-grandkids, I have 11.
Wow.
Yeah.
And children? How many children?
Well, now I only have 1. I had 2, but my daughter died
Okay.
a couple years ago, so I only have the one son.
So I heard of a story. You and your great-grandson took you for a ride on a go-kart last summer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that was for my birthday. Yeah.
Your 95th birthday, he took you for a ride on a go-kart?
No, that was the 94th.
94th?
Or was it?
I thought it was last summer.
It is
Him
the
and
95th. Yeah, it was
her and my
95th.
oldest son, who was 8 at the time,
Yeah.
went for a ride on the go-kart.
Yeah. And
How was that?
it was fun. It was something different, something I've never done before, you see.
Yeah.
95 years old and on a go-kart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to be you one day. Do you get a lot of people saying that to you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Is that a compliment to you?
Well, it is in a way because I don't think anything that I'm exceptional, but everybody, or at least a lot of the people that I hang around with think that I am. So,
I love that. Hang out with.
Yeah. Yeah.
well,
That's
what
so
can-
neat. I'm just looking at you. You do not look at all like 95. So
Thank you.
I still can't believe that you are sitting here right now and you're 95 years old.
So what year were you born then?
1923. See, right there.
1923.
There's that thing
Oh
for my.
yeah, 1923. It
Yeah.
says right there.
So
No. So 1923. I heard also a rumor about you that you like whiskey.
Oh yeah, I don't care for wine or beer.
So you go right for the hard stuff.
I'd rather have a mixed drink.
What kind of whiskey do you like?
Well, right now, mostly when I go to play bingo, we have a drink before bingo, and I usually have Jack Daniel's honey with ginger ale, or else black cherry rum with ginger ale.
Nice.
Those are my
Those are your two
kind
go.
of. Oh, and I love amaretto.
Okay.
That I like.
Did you
it
see
over
her
my,
eyes light up when
Yeah.
she's talking about this liquor
I like
this?
that on my ice cream at night.
Oh, liquor on your ice cream.
Oh yeah.
So is that the secret to living 95 years?
Oh
is
yeah,
drinking?
yeah. My motto is everybody asks me what's the secret to my life, and I says you eat, you drink, and you be merry. That's my motto in life.
Do you remember Prohibition? Do you remember
Oh, yeah.
when you could not even buy alcohol?
Yeah, my
Were,
father.
were you a drinker then?
Well, no, I was too little.
Oh, okay.
But my father used to have it up in the attic.
Really?
He used to make it for some distiller or something.
Really? Mm-hmm. Wow. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Go ahead. I know you're looking.
No.
I just I
that's
got a
fine.
ton of questions. I want to know, what is your favorite president?
Favorite
president throughout the years?
Well, I liked Roosevelt. I mean, he was very good. But I know a lot of people didn't care for Carter. But I thought he was an honest, nice guy that most of them aren't.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you got that right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So during the when the Great Depression hit, how old were you? Were you
I was just, I was 29. I was about 7.
7, 8 years old? So
Yeah.
was your family impacted by that at all?
Oh, yeah. We used to be, we didn't have much. We always ate, but it was just cheaper foods. And you got so that, at least me, I liked bologna. And
Sure.
so
Now,
my
fried
mother-
bologna or regular bologna?
Just bologna
Okay.
sandwich. And my mother, after we could afford something better, and I'd say, I want bologna, she'd say, then you go to the store and get it because I don't want to get bologna again, So it's all a matter of how you
Yeah.
get along with things, how you like things and stuff.
Where did you grow up? Where were you?
In Detroit.
In Detroit.
I was born in New York, in Schenectady, New York, but I came here when I was about 9 months old, and I was raised in Detroit, near the Plymouth factory there, and I lived there till I got married.
Wow.
So we were there for 20 years.
How old were you when you got married?
20.
You were 20 years old.
Yeah, and this is my goal now. I was single for 20 years. I was married for 56 years. And if I can make it till October the 10th of this year, I'll be single for 20 years again, see? So I was going for 20, 56, 20.
So I heard that you also sing in the church choir.
Well, it's Resurrection Choir is what it's called. It's a choir for the funerals. And sometimes it depends on now. This week we have 4 of them. And sometimes you don't have any, and then sometimes they pile up on you.
Have you always been a good singer?
Oh, I'm not a good singer. No, I definitely.
So you're just in the choir, just
to be there, more or
to be
less.
there.
I mean, I sing, but very poorly. And I used to belong to the choir when I was single. Before I got married, I belonged in the church in Detroit, the Resurrection Church. And I was then I sang better, and I was in the choir there.
So your husband passed almost 20 years ago.
Yeah, it'll be 20 years in November.
Has your life changed in the last 20 years, or have you always been this active even when you were married?
Oh, yeah, we were more active. When we lived in Florida, we did more things. We shuffled, we bowled. I had bowling leagues going that I headed and things like that. No, I was always very active.
What was your husband like?
A beautiful, loving father and husband. I mean, he was really, you didn't know.
How did you meet him?
I met him because he lived up the street from me and lived next door to my cousin.
Okay.
And they wanted me to meet him and I was going to school at night and working all day. And so on my way home from work, I stopped at my cousin's and she introduced me to him. And then...
what was your first reaction when you first met him?
Well, he was good, but you see, I was raised in a neighborhood with all boys. There were no girls hardly.
Did you grow up, like you said, in Detroit?
Yeah.
Was it off like Verner Avenue and stuff like that?
No. It was Lynch Road and Mount Elliott.
Okay, gotcha.
And it was all boys. All my neighbors they all had boys. One had 2 boys, one had 8 boys, one had 3 boys, one had 2 boys. So I was not...
So you had a pretty good lot to pick from then, didn't you?
Yeah, and I didn't pick any of them. My husband was from Pennsylvania, so that goes to show you.
So who asked who out? Did he ask you out?
Well, I guess we met. And I went with his brother for a little bit too. And
I guess that was kind of awkward, huh? Wait a second. So you went with the brother first?
No, I went with him. Then I went with his brother, and then I went with him again. But it was a neighborhood. Like I said, these boys were boys. They weren't the kind that would take advantage of you.
Sure.
You just went out. You always had a hell of a good time.
Yeah. There goes the first.
It was nice.
Swear
though.
word.
Yeah. But really, we always just went out and had a good time. There was none of this crap that they have now. Sex
Where was your
and
first
all that.
date at? Do you remember your first date?
My first date?
Like that was what, 75 years ago?
Yeah.
Oh, I went out before that. Yeah.
Did you see that? She's like, Johnny, I went out way before that.
Tell you, it was probably to one of the Polish parks for a picnic on Sundays. You know how they had all that dancing. I went with all the boys there.
So 75 years ago, what do you remember about your wedding during that time? Your wedding, was it pretty amazing?
Well, we did a lot of church work. My dad worked at church called bingo and stuff, and Mom and I used to crochet some of the altar cloths and that. And so I was very active in the church, and so the priest let me be married on a Sunday at High Mass, and I had a big choir and everything, which is something unusual.
Yeah.
You don't have that in a Catholic church much. But I was married on a Sunday, and my husband was in service, so he came home for the wedding. And there's a picture of it there. There's 21 of us in my wedding party.
Wow.
Oh, wow. 21.
Yeah.
That's a big crowd.
Yeah. I had a big wedding, and we had, at that time, too, everything was rationed, meat and everything. So we, because the neighbors were all nice to me, they gave us their rationing coupons and stuff, and we had a morning reception at a hall and an evening reception, about 200 people.
Wow.
And it was
Wow.
a very, very, very nice.
So you're
Go ahead, Joshua. Go ahead.
So your husband was in the service when you got married.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
And I understand. He was in World War II, right? So was he in World War II and he came home to get married, or
he was because we got engaged. We were engaged for 18 months, and when we got engaged, he was not in service. But then he got drafted, and so he went into service, and I wasn't sure what to do, but then.
What do you mean by that? You weren't sure what to do. Like that must have been a little different.
I wanted to get married or not while he was in service, but he wanted to get married. So I says, okay, if you can come home on October the 10th, we can get married.
Talk to the military general and see if you can get off for your wedding.
He came. He got actually. He was in the hospital with real bad tonsillitis, but he said he had to get home for the wedding. So he came home and we got married.
So what? So with nowadays with satellite phones and cell phones and the internet, families can communicate with the troops easily. You know, it's very easy. What was it like having your fiance and then your husband in World War II, one of the most challenging wars in the history of America? What was that like? What was it like to communicate with them?
It was real hard because you didn't hear from them for maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks.
Is that from a letter?
Yeah, just a letter. I mean, that was it. No pictures or anything like they have now. It was just terrible. And then he was wounded overseas. And
how long was he wounded before you heard about it?
I didn't hear right away, but it was going around the neighborhood that somebody was wounded and that they were lost a leg. And I thought it was my husband, but it was somebody else, because then I got a telegram from the government telling me that he was wounded. And then I get a telegram about every once a week or so from the government telling me that he's still recovering. And actually, I had those telegrams, but I just gave them to my grandson, Richie, because he and his grandpa were so close.
Sure.
When we lived here, he used to come here and talk to his grandpa for hours at a time. Don't worry about it.
So,
and that's why I'm saying it was hard when he was gone.
Kay, just go back to your wedding here. I'm looking at your wedding picture.
Yeah.
And it is your bridesmaids are in 2 different color dresses.
Yeah.
Is that because you couldn't make up your mind on what color to get, or because you don't see this very often?
I wanted blue and gold, and then my sister-in-law, which was my maid of honor, was in rose colored.
Okay.
Yeah, and those are mostly the boys from the neighborhood that I grew up with that are in the picture. And then the little ring bearer is my baby brother, who is still alive, and he's living in Georgia.
Yep.
My other 2 brothers, the one is in there too. He's the best man. But the other brother, they're both gone. But
you were married 56 years.
Yeah.
And it seems like very happily married.
Oh, very, very much so. My husband was the best husband. He would come home from work and he would say, honey, why don't you go out shopping or go with the neighbors? He was so good. And he said, I'll get the kids bathed and put them to bed. He was the best husband.
What did he do for a living?
He worked for Chrysler.
Okay.
Well, at first it was Briggs, which was a bathtub company.
Yep.
And then they changed to Chrysler. He and my dad got him to work there because when he came home from service, he was in bad shape.
Okay.
I mean, he was at least little noise and he would be jumping all over, you know.
Right. Did you work too?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What did you do?
Well, to begin with, I did a lot of odd jobs because I graduated when I was 16 and you had to be 18 for a lot of things. So I worked here or there. And then I worked as a sales girl at Crowley's for a little while. And then I became a secretary, a private secretary. So I worked for SKF. It's a ball bearing company.
Okay.
A Swedish ball bearing company. I worked as a private secretary there for a while. And then I thought, well, I'll go somewhere else. So I went as a private secretary to the president of the United Rubber Workers. And then I didn't like it there because the girls there were not very nice because I got the job instead of them. So then
even back then, huh?
I went back to SKF again and worked there again as a private secretary, and I went to night school then, taking up cosmetology, and became a hairdresser.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that explains why your hair looks so good then.
Yeah.
So I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Obviously you have the secret to a great marriage. And with the divorce rate almost 60% right now, what is the secret to a great marriage?
The best thing that I can think of is that you both are on the same page. I mean, if you want to do something, do it together. Or if you don't like something, speak about it. And then of course the kids bring you together a lot too, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think, too, I just picked the right guy because he was the best guy you could ever find. And that's why after he died, I would never find another like him.
Right.
And would never have gotten married again because he was one and only.
Yeah.
One thing that you're talking about, you know, what an amazing husband you had. And we talked a little while ago about World War II. But one aspect that I wanted to have everybody hear is, what was it like for you when you heard, what was it like for you and where were you when you heard that World War II was over?
Well, the funny part about that is I was visiting in New York City at the time.
So when that big parade happened and that picture with the sailor kissing the girl, you were...
I was right downtown New York when that was all happening because the... right downtown because we went to visit my uncle, my aunt and I, and it just happened that they announced it then. Everybody was hugging everybody, kissing everybody. It didn't matter if you were white, black, green, or yellow. I mean, everybody loved everybody that day. It was a beautiful sight.
Wow.
I bet you were thrilled your husband was going to be coming home, huh?
Yeah, it was very good. But you had to wait for the process of him coming
Sure.
and then going through the states here and that, and then coming home. And I remember I was, the day he was coming, of course, it was by train. There was no, nothing like planes now,
Right.
like they do everything. You go by plane. Well,
Yeah.
went by train then. And he came home, and I went down to the train station. I wasn't feeling good, and my mom and dad, I lived with them, and they said, well, why don't we go with you? I said, no, I'm going alone. I want to see him first before everybody else. So I did, and we lived then on 16 in DeQuinder, and I went all the way downtown to Detroit by myself. It was really a beautiful, beautiful moment to meet him.
So awesome.
To see him after not seeing him for, 2-3 years. It was kind of nice to be able to see him.
When you were born in 1923, and I'm not sure, Joshua, but when did you when you were growing up, did you have telephones? Did you have video games? Did you have TV? Did you have radio?
No.
Did you have all these things that these kids these days?
What about tablets?
Yeah, and beepers
We had a radio. Period.
Now, did you sit around every night and listen to radio shows?
Not really. No,
No?
we were always busy doing something else. Because when I lived, well, no, we didn't do that. When I was a kid, we were outside playing all the time. I played with the boys, baseball and all this other
So
stuff.
were you a tomboy growing up?
Oh, yeah. I would say so because that's the only way I could do things. I didn't sit and play with dolls because
Right.
the boys wouldn't sit and play with dolls with you, So
Right.
I was a real outside person.
Okay.
I loved being outside.
Do you
so
remember the first time you got to watch TV?
It was after my son was born.
Really?
Yeah, because
And what was that like, going from radio to all of a sudden you could see somebody on TV? What was that like for you?
It was really different.
Yeah.
And we had a little bitty screen television. What was it, 7-inch?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was our first one. And
Was it black and white?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And another thing, too, when you talk about telephones, when I was expecting my son, we didn't have a telephone at home. So we had to go out up the road to a neighbor that was like a block or so away that had a phone, and then to call the doctor to tell him how I was feeling. And so he said to get right to the hospital.
Because she says your son is
72.
72. So 72 years
That's
ago.
72
Isn't that
years
crazy?
ago.
Yeah.
We had
Wow.
no telephones.
And I know that there are like 20-some-year-old kids listening going like, what do you mean no telephones, no this, no that?
We just had nothing. I mean, and then when we moved out from Detroit out into the country, we didn't have inside bathroom either. And it was a big change.
Where was the
having,
country? What city?
16 Mile in DeQuinder.
Okay.
That was just country then.
Now it's all city.
Yeah, and that was just a country road, a 2-lane road that was humped road with big ditches on either side. And so many times people slid into those ditches, especially in bad weather. And it was just, it was a completely different, and I can remember this is funny, it just dawned on me about my grandma. That's the one up on the picture there. She was staying with us for a while, and it was pouring rain, and it was flooding. Everything was flooding, and she was out there with a bucket, taking water, thinking it would go in those ditches, But it was all over. It wouldn't go anywhere, but she kept bailing water, To me, that was so amazing to think that she thought she could conquer this thing,
Yeah.
That's why I said some of these crazy things come to your mind,
No, and this is why I wanted to have you on the show because, being 95 years old, you've seen things that we never saw, and we got to see in history books. And you lived through it. Do you remember your very first vehicle that you guys bought?
Oh, yeah, that was after we were married already, and we bought it from my brother's mother-in-law. She was going to buy another car, and so we asked if we could buy her car. And our first 2 or 3 cars were bought from my brother's mother-in-law.
What kind of car was your first car? Do you remember?
No, I can't remember, but I know one of them that we bought from her, and we had it for quite a while. We called her Betsy. And when we had to get rid of
Betsy?
it, the kids cried and cried because they didn't really want to get rid of Betsy, But that was the thing of it. Like now, my car is 15 years old.
Yeah.
I don't believe in buying cars all the time.
Right. Yeah.
And
Right.
they're always 8 to 10 years old, but this one's 15 years old.
Your husband was in World War II. And your son,
my son was in the Vietnam War.
What was that like for you to have send?
That was the
bad
most
enough having your husband go in be in a war, and then to have your son.
Well, this
off.
was so bad because he was in Vietnam, and he worked on airplanes. That was his job, and every time they'd say they were bombing Tan Son Nhut Air Base, I don't care where I was, I tried to get to a television to see what was going on. That was more unnerving than it was with my husband because I didn't know what was going on during World War II. They didn't announce it or tell you.
Yeah.
You had
Whereas
just
with
enough
the
information.
Vietnam War,
Yeah.
it was on the air and everything, and you could see. And that was terrible, yeah. And my dad, of course, was in World War I, but he was just in, when he got in, he was in just long enough to become a veteran, and he, the war ended. So he was very lucky.
Right.
So I had 3 generations, my dad, my husband, and my son.
Wow. So with your son, talking about with your husband going, a letter once a week, was it any different with your son? Like, what was that communication like? Was it still the constant?
Yeah, because it was different because you could see on television what was going on in that,
Did you hear from him as much, or?
Oh, yeah, a little more than you did with the other, yeah. It was...
I bet it was also pretty exciting, especially all the men we lost in Vietnam to get him back was probably pretty amazing. I imagine.
Yeah, it was so funny, and the funny part about him is, I got to say this: when he was a kid, he looked like alfalfa. His hair just stood up on end all over, just had all these colics, and then when he went to Vietnam. And we met him. That was our one trip to Hawaii. we went there and met him, and I didn't recognize him. He had such curly hair. And I said, what happened? What did you, how did you get? I don't know, Mom. It just turned curly. And it was just so amazing to
It's
think.
curly now too, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's real curly.
Nice wavy.
Yeah.
And it's just so amazing when you think about him as a kid, because I gave him a permit one time to have him have curly hair.
Yeah.
And then to see him. with
Was he
his
was he your test with your being a hairdresser? Did you practice on him and your daughter?
Oh, no. My cousin let me do that on her all the time.
Okay.
So, and my mother, of course, I worked on my mother all the time. And I can remember the one time, this is funny, I have to say it, because she wanted to have gray hair. Mm-hmm. She thought it'd be nicer if she had all gray hair. So she's, honey, make it. I said, Mom, you don't want me to do that because then you can't get a perm. Your hair is going to fall off if you get a perm. No, honey, go ahead and do it. I know it'll be okay. So I got it to get gray. And then when she wanted that perm, I said, it's going to break, Mom. And it did. So, I mean, these are things you kind of forget, but then you remember them when you talk about it.
Sure.
Well, she's bringing that up, and it just made me realize that in the 80s, when I was in high school, I got perms.
Oh, yeah?
And because I thought they were so cool.
So we're talking.
She's looking at me like I'm crazy, but yeah, it was like I think I had what did you call it when it was like the a mullet?
Yeah.
I had the short hair in front and business in the front and party in the back.
Yeah.
You were talking in that timeline there around like the 60s. Do you remember, there was a lot going on then. There's the civil rights movement. There's the Vietnam War protests. There's the Kennedy assassination. The moon landing, all these big things happening. Do you remember, what were some of the biggest moments in that period of time?
Well, the one thing I remember real well is Kennedy's assassination because it was on my daughter Sandy's birthday.
Oh, okay.
So that to me was pretty outstanding.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But
do you remember where you were when you heard?
Yeah, we were at home celebrating our birthday.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So
was it one of those times that like people were crying and really emotional?
Yeah.
And
well, you had to be because he was a wonderful guy, and just to see that happen, was terrible. I mean, it's hard to realize even nowadays that people can keep shooting people like they do.
Yeah,
I just can't see why they can't love one another more.
Yeah.
Than.
What about the moon landing? I just watched a show recently about the moon landing and how that was like the most watched thing in the history of television when it happened.
And remember that satellite that we were in Florida then, and my cousin Alice and Al were there with us, and we were just going into the grocery store, into Publix, and they were shooting up that rocket, and that's when it exploded.
Yeah, oh yeah.
That was terrifying to see that because we walked out.
Are you talking about the Challenger in go?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And you saw that happen?
Yeah, we were in Florida. Wow. And we saw that, go up in the air.
Wow.
You don't remember all these things, but, when you bring it up, then you remember that you were there and you saw it,
Yeah.
Did you sit around, did you guys get together, when Neil Armstrong walked on the moon? Did you get together around and watch that monumental?
That I can't remember.
Yeah. You weren't big into the space race, huh?
You have the most amazing attitude. What do you think the secret to having a good attitude is?
Just love everybody. Don't. Some people, and I have some that do this, they find the worst in people.
Yeah.
And instead, you can't do that. I have a friend, I won't mention her by name, but she has never anything nice to say about anybody or anything. Mm-hmm. And to me, what joy do you get out of being negative all the time?
Yeah.
I just can't understand people when they do that.
What advice would you give this next generation coming up?
Oh, Lord, with the way it's going, I don't know. It's not. I wouldn't want to be here, I'll tell you that. Because to me, it's everything is so spoiled, if you want to call it, or that there's too much of everything that you can see, and it's not good. And like they announce things, how burglars that get into these places, I mean, they're telling people on the air how to do wrong. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, is so sad because our kids are listening to that.
You have seen so many cool things like the TV, the telephone, the internet. Mm-hmm. Now, are you on social media at all? Are you on Twitter and Facebook and stuff like that?
Nope, I have a little old, what do you call it, cell phone? Not cell phone, but flip phone.
Oh, you have a flip phone?
Yeah. I have a flip phone.
Okay.
And I had a computer. I gave it back because I wasn't into that. I would remember at about 11:30 at night and say, oh, maybe I'd better look if something's on it, And so I gave the computer back. And I'm just not anything. I know these kids, when that Facebook first came out, I remember my granddaughter, Joey. Mm-hmm. I told her, I said, Joey, don't you ever put anything about me on Facebook.
Yeah.
And now, of course, they do it regardless of what you want, Your pictures on Facebook all the time, And
Joshua, you got one? Because otherwise, I want to know about Elvis. Do you remember when Elvis started to get popular? And were you an Elvis,
No,
fan?
I was not an Elvis fan.
Who were you a fan of when it came to music? Like, what kind of music did you like?
I liked.
Were you a country girl? Were you a rock and roll girl?
The one that sings with Frank Sinatra. What was his name? The other guy.
Oh, the Rat Pack.
Anyway, that's the one I liked. But I didn't care for Frank Sinatra either. But I liked that other guy. I forgot what his name is now.
Yeah.
Names are not my thing. I can tell you anybody's phone number. It's up here. But names, I'll meet them. And like if I want to talk about one of the neighbors, I'll say, that means Sharon upstairs.
Right.
Or Denise, I names just don't stay with me very good.
Isn't that funny? Because to this day, like these computers, these phones, they get you almost to the point that you feel dumb.
Yeah.
I don't even know my daughter's phone number. Why? Because all I have to do is hit send or look her name up.
Well, that's it.
You don't have to memorize. But remember back in the day, Joshua, and you remember this too, Kay, is you had to memorize people's numbers, or you kept a notebook.
Yeah.
And after a year or two, you'd have to get another one because it would get soiled because you were looking at it so much.
Yeah, no, I have all my friends, everybody, and all the kids' numbers up here. I can just, and they always say, well, they'll press. I can dial. I dial everybody's number. I don't press a key. There's some in there. They've got them, but I don't know how to do it. So I press the numbers and.
Kay, are you a good cook?
Am I a good cook? I was a pretty good cook in my day, yeah.
Yeah? Uh-huh. All right. Now, who was a better cook, you or your husband?
Oh, he had to cook simply because I worked later when I was doing hair. I worked later and he got home earlier. So he would start the cooking with the kids and then I would finish it or else they'd get it done before I got home.
Have you always been an outgoing young lady?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, all my life.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you did very, very well doing hair because that is part of not just doing someone's hair, but you have to be able to keep that conversation because sometimes you're with that lady, for hours, right? Doing a perm or doing a hair color or something like that.
Yeah, no, I had a lot of wonderful, wonderful customers when I was working. Yeah.
Do you miss working?
Oh, yeah. I mean, especially when this is terrible to say it, but when you go to church sometimes and you see that head there that looks like, oh, Lord, would I love to get my hands on it.
So you still think like that? You still think?
Oh yeah, yeah.
That is amazing. That is so cool. Go ahead, Josh.
So what Johnny asked earlier about what advice you might have for like this upcoming generation, and I understand exactly, you're like, oh, I wouldn't want to be here. But what about a couple that's getting ready to get married? What kind of advice would you have? Like you and your husband, 56 years, which 50 is like a wonderful milestone for anybody. And then to talk about him now the way you do, obviously you had an awesome marriage. What was that? What advice would you give a young couple?
Well, I think if you're going to marry someone, you really have to know them. I mean, be with them. I don't mean sleep together before marriage. I mean, be with them and know their likes, their dislikes, and that, so that you'd know more or less if you're on the same ground or not.
Yep.
Because if you find that they, like, say maybe you have a real sport-minded husband and you don't care for that, that's not going to keep you together, because he's going to want to go there and you're not going to want to go, and then before you know it, you're drifting apart.
Yes.
So to me, you have to have more or less the same kind of likes and that, and that'll keep you together a lot longer than anything else.
Speaking of sports, are you a Detroit sports fan?
I used to be a baseball fan, but now I'm in.
Used to be.
I can't get the baseball games anymore because I gave up Comcast and I just have an antenna.
Okay.
Because that got way out of hand too, for what you can see on.
Well, you can get everything online on the internet.
I don't have internet.
I'm just joking with you. I know. Grab that
No, I
tablet
can't
or
get
get a
anything
smartphone instead of your flip phone, and you can watch everything.
Not
Do
online.
you know what YouTube is?
I've heard of it.
It's just a bunch of a place that you can watch a bunch of cool videos and stuff like
yeah,
that.
see, I don't have that either.
What's your favorite time of the year?
My favorite time?
Time of the year. Summer, spring,
Probably
winter.
summer because it's warm. I don't like winter. That's why I loved Florida when I lived there.
Yeah.
And I don't. Spring isn't bad, but I don't know. Summer is the best. It's the warmest.
What is something that you still want to do that you have not yet to do in 95 and a half years of being on this earth? There has to be one thing that you're like, Johnny, I would still love to go do this.
Skydiving?
That's not my thing. I honestly can't say that there's anything that I'd like to do that I haven't done.
No kidding.
I've traveled as much as I could, and I don't know. To me, it seems like my life. Like I said, if I had to die tomorrow, I've had a good, very, very good life.
Okay, I say that all the time. I'm like, you know what? I have no regrets. I have done more in my life already than most people could ever dream of.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first time you flew on an airplane?
Oh, yeah.
What was that like?
Oh, man, that was really something because it was a propeller plane. And I got on that plane. I was flying to New York. And I was scared to death. And then that pilot came out to talk to us. And get back there and fly that plane.
And back then, everybody dressed up when they flew somewhere too, didn't they?
Well, yeah. Well, I dressed up no matter where.
Yeah, I guess back then everybody dressed up just for no reason, just to dress
you didn't
up.
go and like they do now. Well, that's like going to church too.
Yep.
When we used to everybody used to go to church, they were dressed up. And now you see them coming to church in those short shorts, and stuff. That really, really tells me you have no respect.
I like wearing real
mean,
short shorts when I go to
With cowboy
I've
boots.
seen them in church. Yeah, they've come to our church with those short shorts. And that really makes you feel like they have no respect for religion at all.
Yeah.
I mean,
When you were in school, what was your favorite subject?
well, in high school it was math,
Okay.
but you see, that's another thing. When I started school, I started in the third grade because my dad took me to. My mother was sick, and so my dad took it to me to enroll me in school. And they said, well, what grade is she in? And dad says, what grade you in? I says, well, I'm in the third grade. And my brother said, Daddy, she can't be because I'm only in the second grade and I'm older. And Daddy said, if she said she's in the third grade, she's in the third grade. So they put me in the third grade. And that's because, see, I went to kindergarten A, kindergarten B, and the next one was the third grade.
Oh, gotcha.
It was the third room, but I thought it
skipped
was
a couple
the third
classes.
Did you have a favorite teacher in school? Like, looking back, did you have a favorite?
Really.
No.
No, I didn't. And then when I went to high school, I went to the. I don't know if you remember it being there, the convent on St. Alban in Canfield.
I remember convents.
It was a Felician Sisters convent there, and that's where
So
I went
to
to
Catholic
high
schools.
school.
I was a good Catholic boy.
I want to ask you something. It might be a little bit of a different type of question.
Go ahead.
But it's something that pops in your head. Think of someone at 95. Obviously, your husband passed away, and I'm sure you've, over the course of your life, lost a lot of friends, a lot more friends than someone my age or Johnny's age. What has that been like, and how has that impacted because your attitude is impeccable. So what's that like, and what's your process of dealing with that? Because I'm sure that's happened a lot for you.
No, actually, when we had to leave here and move to Florida, I had a lot of friends here, and then I had to leave them. And then we lived in Florida for 20 years, and then I built up, because I was very active, bowled and shuffled and played cards and everything. So I had a whole new realm of friends again.
Sure.
And then when I had to come back here, of course, this was right here that I moved to. And then again, you see, I have wonderful neighbors. I have wonderful friends from cards, wonderful church friends. I have such a big magnitude of friends that I just don't seem to suffer any.
If you lose them?
That I'm lonesome or anything. I never have been.
One thing, though, just to stay in that vein just for a minute, a couple years ago, you lost your daughter. And that's something that I'm sure that was challenging.
That was very hard for me because she called me every morning at 10. She didn't call before that 'cause in case I wanted to sleep in. She'd call at 10 and make sure I'm okay. And then during the day, we would talk sometimes. And then she always checked in at 10 at night to make sure I was okay and going to bed. And during the day, if we had to talk, it was a lot about General Hospital. Because that's
Okay, I used to watch that all through high school and elementary school. Just because my mom watched it. I would come on. I would never tell anybody. So if anybody, I hope no one's listening to this one because I used to watch soap operas.
Well, the funny part of it is
who was your favorite person on General Hospital?
Huh?
Who was your favorite person on General Hospital?
I don't know if I have a favorite one because I get so mad at some of them. But, when I went to the eye doctors, this gal and I started talking, one of the receptionists there.
Right.
And she watches General Hospital. So when I go there, I talk to her about it. And now I found out where I go to the beauty shop, the girls there watch General Hospital. And I can't watch
Wait, it's still
them.
on?
Oh, yeah.
It's like there's this underground subculture of General Hospital.
I didn't know it was still on.
Oh, yeah, it's the only one. It's on at 2 every afternoon.
Okay.
So
We'll have to
in
have a
case you
watch
want to
party.
watch
Right,
it,
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
on at 2 every afternoon. But the girls
YouTube
there
it.
are so nice about it because I'll say, well, I can't watch it Mondays because I play bridge and that. And so if I can't watch it, I'll say, what happened? What's this one doing? What's that one? And they know everything because they tape it and then they watch it, see. So that,
Do you ever get stressed out?
Do I ever get stressed out?
And what do you do when you do have one of those days that you get a little stressed?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
That's where the
that.
honey
No.
jack comes in, right?
No, I don't know. I mean, sometimes you think about like the loss of my daughter really put me down some. I mean, I felt so bad about that because I thought it should be me instead of her, and I couldn't see why they couldn't help her, But that's, but usually things, like I said, everybody seems, in an okay mood with me, I mean, once in a while we get things, but you sleep on it. And
that's one thing about you, though, that's just like even you said about your daughter and Johnny this first time you met is just this overwhelming positive energy. And I have a friend of ours who comes over every time that you're around. And so I just got to ask you to give him a little shout out. Who's your favorite DJ in Detroit?
Oh, you mean Meltdown?
Yeah. Meltdown from WRF.
Meltdown. Yeah, I have a shirt from him that he gave me on my, what's that, my 90th or 91st birthday or something.
Something like that, yeah.
He brought
I
me.
saw that on Facebook, so you might want to yell at him next time you see him because I saw the photo of both of you.
Oh, that's hugging.
And he has
kissing.
a lot of people that see
yeah.
his stuff.
Yeah, he's every time I see him, he's such a good, positive guy for me,
he
too.
is. He's a great guy.
I mean,
he's been on the show.
Huh?
He's been on the podcast.
Oh, does he?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
How about that, eh?
What do you want to, you're 95 and a half years old.
Yeah.
Are you already planning your 100th birthday party?
Oh, they keep teasing me. Everybody's coming to it. All my friends are coming to it.
What do you want to do for your 100th birthday?
Well, we kid my son-in-law all the time, Joe, UJ. We keep teasing him that he's renting Cobo Hall for me because I've got so many friends.
Nice.
So
it's going to be the bash.
That's what we're laughing about all the time. For my 100th birthday, we're going to rent Cobo Hall and have a party.
Nice. And who would be the band that would play for you?
Oh, I don't know because I don't know any bands.
You don't know? No, we'll leave it up to Meltdown.
It'd have to be a good Polish band, though.
A good
so
Polish
you can
band?
do polkas and stuff,
So do you still dance?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
My husband and I won a dance contest in Florida one time.
Really? Doing a polka? Or doing the polkas?
No, just doing everything.
Okay.
All different dances. You had to do a little bit
So
of
not
everything.
only was he a good man, but he could dance?
Oh, yeah, he could dance.
That's the key to a happy marriage.
I'm doomed then, Johnny.
You better
I
start
can't
learning how to dance.
No, we dance. I used to go to dances all the time when I was younger. We used to go to the Greystone and it began with an A. I forgot the name of it. But we used to go downtown to the Greystone, my girlfriend and I, all the time to dance, yeah.
Do you have a nickname?
Nickname?
Yeah.
No, I'm Kay.
Just Kay.
Just Kay, yeah. But it's like I said, that's another thing. During the war, I was Kathy because I like the name Kathy. So
during the war, wait a second, slow down a minute. So during the war, you were Kathy. Explain why would you have a
I just got kind of. I was
Well,
like, what's
because-
going on here?
Well, Catherine is a long name, and I didn't want to be in school and everything. You had to be Catherine,
Right.
But then during the war, I thought I'd like a shorter name, so I took Kathy. So I was just Kathy to everybody,
okay.
and all the boys that used to write me letters would write "Dear Kathy."
All the boys would write
and
you
so I was
letters.
Kathy. And I didn't like Kitty because they'd say, "Here, Kitty, Kitty," so that was out. And then I changed after the war. After I got married, I changed to Kay, and so everybody knows me as Kay.
Yeah.
Most everybody.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you if you have hobbies to this day, but I'm looking over right now, and I don't know if that is Joshua is knitting or if that's you.
Oh no,
That's knitting.
I knit. I crochet. I made that. I did that lamp.
What?
Yeah,
Really?
I didn't make. I
Put it
chalked
together,
it.
yeah.
I chalked it. Yeah, and we made rugs. I made all my blankets for the bed. I mean, I can't sit without something in my hands. I have to have something in my hands working.
That's unbelievable. You're still doing that to this day.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
it's
yeah.
just amazing.
And I knit all my own socks. I don't wear anything but my own knit socks.
It's probably it's really neat though. I mean, you're it keeps you busy. It's fun. You're creating.
I love it. I love doing it.
I know there's been a lot of we have these girls. The girls. You just made those beautiful hats for them.
Yeah.
And everybody loves.
Oh, for those little
all
girls
the kids
that
get hats.
Yeah, well,
Oh, nice.
that
Yeah.
was so because Pat asked me to because she
Yeah.
said they needed them, so
Yeah.
I just put them together.
Yeah.
Who has been a person in your life that has influenced you to be the person that you are today?
I think my mom and dad, they were both very active, very religious, and they were always working on. My mother always was working on something with her hands too, and I think they were the most influential for me.
Kay, do you think, and Joshua, I don't know, but it's been already, I mean, we only have 10 minutes left. It's been almost an hour. Mm-hmm. But she keeps going back over and over and over again and talking about one thing. And I don't know if you've caught it or not, but I'm getting goosebumps again right now. And Kay, the one thing that you keep bringing up is faith, religion.
Church.
Do you think, church, do you think that church is missing in today's society? That
Very
not
much.
enough people take church serious?
Yeah, very much so. Because, like I said, I was raised with good faith, And even like today now, I usually say my rosary every day because I want the Blessed Mother to help me through the day. And I try to get to church for things that are going on there that I can make it and can drive to because, like I
Wait,
said,
you still drive?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
What?
yeah.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
You still drive. 95 and a half years
Yeah,
old and you still drive.
She was talking earlier about her 15-year-old car.
I know
Remember?
that,
Yeah.
but I just
Yeah.
assumed like you still had it,
Yeah.
not that you still drive
Yeah.
it.
No.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping I can get my license again in August because now I have
Wow.
to apply every year.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a funny question, but I'm going to go back to your childhood.
Uh-huh.
Did you get an allowance? Because you just got done talking about how cool your mom and dad were, but were you in one of those families that they believed in giving allowance?
No.
Or they just made you do your chores and that's
We
it?
just did what we had to do, and that was it. We didn't get they never had money to give us money. And that's another thing. Like when I first got married, my husband, of course, coming just home from service, we didn't have much of anything. And Mom and Dad helped us a lot to get through some bad points, And then when they retired, they had nothing. So then my husband and I, paid a lot of their bills and helped them because they moved to Florida and they didn't have anything. So then we paid their bills. So like I said, it's a lot of what you do in your life for others, it's bound to come back to you.
Amen. Spread a little kindness once in a while, right, Kay?
It really helps, I'll tell you.
You know, you have been through so much in 95 plus years. Do you remember any fads that you liked? Maybe hairstyles, maybe the way that people dressed that really sticks out to you? Because when you really think about how long she's been around and all the fads that have come and gone, do you wish that one would come back?
I don't know, really. Think a bit.
What was your favorite?
When he says fads, he means things that are real big, they're real popular.
Yeah, like hairdos.
They come and then they
dresses
go, and they come.
No, I've
and then
been
they
through
go.
all the different hairdos, all the updos and downdos, and I'll
Updos
tell you
and
one thing.
downdos.
I'm the only thing is at times now so many of the ladies are wearing their hair real short, and I can understand it because you can wash it more often and you can just comb it and you're done. You
Right.
don't spend all that money at the beauty shop. But I don't know. As far as anything outstanding, I really.
What was your favorite era? Was it the 50s? Was it the 60s? Was it the 70s? 80s?
Of course, in the 70s and 80s, when I lived in Florida, that was a great thing for me.
Right.
Because I was out all the time doing everything, shuffling, bowling, everything. I mean, we were so busy every day.
Yeah.
And we had parties all the time and everything. It was a completely different life
Right.
than it is living up north.
Yeah. No, and you were absolutely right about that.
We're talking about, the different time periods. And obviously right now there's a lot of unrest and division politically in the country. And and you think about other times in history, like maybe the civil rights movement. What do you think, like, as far as like, what was it like then versus what's it like now as far as people bickering and
Well, I think it wasn't as bad as it is now. I think people now are just so they can't find happiness in life as much as we used to. There just seems like nobody. You look at somebody the wrong way, and it's wrong. You're in trouble. And I don't know. It's just getting worse and worse.
yeah,
It's scary to go out even on the road now because there's a lot of that road rage, and I've never seen as many careless drivers that cut in front and go. And I mean, life is not easy anymore, and I feel sorry for the generation coming up because they're going to have one heck of a time trying to live the way these things are going.
Well, you talked about Johnny asked you about the church, and you talked about faith and how the church is missing a lot of things in your personal life. What has your personal faith meant to you, and how has that helped you be so positive to others?
Well, I'll tell you, my faith has been the one thing that has kept me going all these years. From a little kid on, I used to go to church. I used to take my little brother, who was 10 years younger. I used to walk him to church, and we had a mile to church, and we didn't have cars and stuff. So we used to walk to church evenings, mornings. I mean, it was just, my faith has always been there. And even like now, the thing that would bother me more than anything, if I can't drive, is getting to church.
Mm-hmm.
That would be it.
Well, I'm sure that that'll never be a problem, because church, and especially the church you go to, somebody will always pick you up. We're like literally almost out of time, and Kay, I want you to answer this question.
Okay.
And I'm going to ask you, because I had to ask myself this question several times.
Go ahead.
Just because of sometimes we want to be remembered.
Okay.
How do you want to be remembered?
As a loving person that
She says
cares
that with a great
about
big
everybody. No, really.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think it's great. I love how your face just lit up. Say that again.
as a loving person, that everybody will love me as much as I love everybody. And I have a lot of friends that say that they do, you see.
Yeah.
So I sort of kind of believe them.
Yeah.
Kind of a follow-up to that, just, talking about how you want to be remembered. Like, what's your legacy? What about your legacy are you the most proud of?
That being the person that I am, that I'm a happy
That's awesome.
Yeah.
person that eats, drinks, and be merry.
There we go.
So just I keep saying one more.
Yeah.
So you said that you love to eat, you love to have a cocktail still to this day. Did you ever smoke? Because back in the day, smoking was such a trend back then. Did you ever smoke?
Now that you said that.
Uh-oh.
Okay. When I worked, when I worked as a private secretary, my boss used to get tickets to the Detroit Yacht Club.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to go, so he would give me his tickets and my girlfriend. And of course, when you went there, everybody smoked.
Yeah.
So we would buy a pack of cigarettes on the way in and smoke. Couldn't stand the thing, but we would smoke just to look like the other people.
Yeah.
And then another time, when we were in high school, we used to go to my girlfriend's every Saturday night. There were 6 of us went there, 6 girls. And we would, in her bedroom, we were learning to smoke.
Oh, wow.
If you can imagine. And that mother never said a word to us.
Wow.
But if that was my mother, I'm sure she probably would have said something. But can you imagine when she opened that door and all
Right.
that smoke come out of it?
Yeah.
But
I just picture that.
I never did like it. So, I mean, I didn't smoke. But it was just one of those things,
Joshua, wrap it up with one more, and then I have a special way that I want Kay to wrap this podcast up. But I'm going to let you ask the last question. If you have something. If not, then maybe you can make a comment, closing remarks.
No, I just, I guess as a closing remark, we've asked a lot of questions. I think you've had a lot of people on your show, Johnny, a lot of different people from a lot of different things. And, you're the example for all of us, Kay. You're the example for all of us. You had an awesome marriage. You had an awesome, relationships with your kids, relationships with your friends, your hobbies. And I just want to thank you for being you and being a light for the world around you to see that this is someone who's doing it the right way. And this is someone who we all can long to be. And I want to thank you for coming on Johnny's show, because sharing this with people and inspiring people how to do it the right way. It's just awesome.
Yeah. And I second that. Kay, do you want to say something? Go ahead.
Well, I just want to say that I do have a wonderful family. My son that's left, my grandchildren, and my great-grandchildren. They are so wonderful, every one of them, and I love them all, and I hope that they have as good a life as I have.
That's amazing. Kay, I'm going to end it with, Joshua, we have never done anything like this before, but because religion is so important to me, faith is so important to me, to Joshua, and to you, you don't know who's ever going to be listening to the podcast. Mm-hmm. Kay, I want to wrap this podcast up with you just saying a prayer for the people listening, if you would, please. And I know I kind of put you on the spot, but I would appreciate if you would just pray
Okay.
out loud for the people listening.
Okay. Well, what I can say is that the thing that I say during the day when I don't know much is going on and I want to talk to somebody, I say, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen. And all you who are listening, please think about it. The mother will help you. She's always there for you, okay? I love you. Bye.
Kay, thank you so much. Joshua, that was just amazing. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls that are listening, this is Johnny D, the Motivational Cowboy, with another episode of Outstanding Life Podcast. And please, 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 please follow me on motivationalcowboy.com. You can follow me at soundcloud.com/Outstanding Life Podcast. We're on Apple Podcasts. We are on Spotify. I'm at Twitter at MCJohnnyD4. Facebook, I'm at Motivational Cowboy. And I'm also on Instagram at Motivational Cowboy. Again, this is Johnny D, the Motivational Cowboy, telling all of you, be safe, have fun, and have yourselves an outstanding day. We'll see you next time. Eat and be merry and have a drink, Kay says.